On to the next item 9, achieving better outcomes for the Monaco Harbour. Thank you very much. John Turner, sorry. I forgot we have John Turner, the chair of the Monaco Harbour Forum, and Alan Cole is the deputy chair now.
Move it.
Apologies, team. And Kerm can second. Kia ora and congratulations on your new roles as chair and deputy chair of the forum, and just have a bit of order around the table, and we'll give you 5 minutes to present on what you'd like to talk about in the forum. Thank you.
Kia ora koutou, ko pukiwiwi te maunga, te runei taku nākou, ko wairaki te awa e mahia nei aku maharahara, no puki tāpapa ahau. E mema o te pauari arohi o puki tāpapa. Ko John Turner ahau, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. Kia ora everyone, and thank you for having both Alan and I here today. I'm honoured to represent the Monaco Harbour Forum in my role as newly elected chair, as in on Friday, and to bring you our thoughts on the report that's going to be discussed today. A little bit of background, the Harbour Forum is made up of the 9 local boards that surround the harbour. It was established in 2010 to provide for advocacy and support of the harbour and to urge for restoration and sustainable management of the harbour. When the tide's out in the Monaco, the water is very cloudy and murky, but on an incoming tide, the Tasman Sea races into the channel and the water becomes a beautiful blue-green. Over the past century, the Monaco has at times seemed to be at a permanent metaphorical low tide. Some of my earliest memories are on the Monaco Harbour at Huia, where my family had a batch. We'd drive out there on weekends, swim and boat around. However, the beach far closer to home, Waikowhai, was not somewhere anyone would swim. In the 60s, turned into a rubbish dump, sewage pumped into the inner harbour, cutting people off from kai and recreation. I'd like to think, though, we're now at the beginning of an incoming tide. There's literally clear water in the Monaco. So on this incoming tide, it's one the harbour's focused on again, and all parties are working for the betterment of it. There's an awful lot of work that needs to be done, and it's vital that the governing body plays a significant role in the management of the harbour. In regards to the report, the Forum supports the recommendations made to the committee with the potential addition of an increase in funding from the governing body, especially to support items 5 and 6 under B. The good work the Forum has done in the past has all been funded by local boards. With the recent budget crunch, we're lucky enough to be able to carry over funding from previous years. However, in the next financial year, this won't be the case, and local boards are keen to see some support by governing body in the running of the Forum. I look at the Waitemata Harbour with the $300,000 budget for the Hauraki Gulf Forum and the positive that has sprung with that. Contrast it with the $58,000 that the local boards are allocating towards the Forum. Aha kaua e hiti e pōnamu. Although it's small, it's precious, but imagine how much more we could do with that additional support. We're not looking for hundreds of thousands of dollars, but a contribution to recognise the role both governing body and local boards have to play. It was gratifying to see the high-level stocktake of activities, which is attachment A to the report, even if the local board activities were limited only to those under I, E and S. There are many more activities taking place under local board LDI that affect the harbour, under different work streams. And so for the future updates, I'd ask that staff include these in the stocktake. For one example, in the Puki Tāpapa local board, there's at least $100,000 in LDI spend that isn't captured in this iteration of the stocktake, which benefits the harbour. I realise there's been a lot of work to put the stocktake together, but I'd encourage staff to work with us to make sure we're capturing all the things that are going on. We really look forward to the state of the harbour report in early 2021, as that was one of the main recommendations of the report. But I would like to point out there's a lack of any mention of the hydrodynamic model in the report that you have. In 2016, Watercare commissioned NIWA to undertake the task of constructing a hydrodynamic model of the Monaco Harbour. And it was hoped that this would allow Council to identify nutrient streams and create a response to them. It was scheduled to be completed in June 2019. The time has come and passed, and we haven't seen it. We've been told it's sitting with Watercare, and what reason is there not to share that model with us? Finally, in regards to governance and structure, the value of mana whenua in supporting and restoring this taonga is vital. We're very pleased to see the recommendation in the report of a collaborative approach with mana whenua. We support the move to explore a new approach to governance with mana whenua and understand the need to do this separate of the Harbour Forum. We'd like to formally invite members of the committee to attend forum business meetings and workshops, particularly chair or deputy chair, while the mahi is going on to create that co-governance structure. We highly support item 44, which is that the committee takes a greater role in holding the council group accountable for Monaco Harbour outcomes. We believe the release of the hydrodynamic model by Watercare would be a great first step towards achieving this. To finish, I'd like to thank the community group, the Monaco Harbour Restoration Society, who've worked tirelessly to improve outcomes on the harbour. And I'm not just saying that because my auntie's on it. I'd also like to acknowledge previous iterations of the forum for all their hard work, and finally to acknowledge mana whenua who have lived by and cared for the Monaco. Mā whero, mā pango, ka oti ai te mahi. With red and black, the work will be complete. I look forward to working with governing body, mana whenua and the community as we move forward to our shared goal of protecting and restoring the Monaco Harbour. Kia ora.
Kia ora, John. Thank you very much. And Alan, is there anything you wanted to add?
I think John covered all those, but like our concern is about the hydrodynamic model that hasn't been reported. We've actually heard back, and whether this is true or not, it does not actually take into account all contaminants that are entering the harbour.
We can definitely ask about that for sure. Are there any other questions? Oh, sorry, is that Member Wilson?
Kia ora, some very good spirited kōrero there. I guess my my overriding question is, in looking for funding and acknowledging the significance for mana whenua, how would you see as a priority mana whenua would be privy to funding in opposition to what the forum is doing? What's the significance for mana whenua in the forum, and therefore coming here looking for funding streams?
Kia ora. So one of the recommendations of the Bailey review was for the forum to be working with mana whenua, and for that it was part of that was funding to ensure that we're not adding to the load without supplying for it. And so that's part of the reason why that funding would be really important. It's to help with that working with mana whenua towards the co-governance model and to get that feedback on the activities we have going on and that we'd like to see happening as well. Hopefully that answers your question.
Through the chair. So what if the view was that mana whenua would like to lead the kaupapa, because it is of significance, as has already been outlined in your presentation and the report? What then, in terms of their place?
Through the chair, I think that's what this report leads to, is that mana whenua need to be leading any further leadership around what happens around the harbour, and the forum plays a role more of advocacy from local boards. But we need to also be engaging with mana whenua that live around there, that are in our boards, that are doing lots of mahi in the Monaco Harbour. And so that, I think, is the recommendation from within the Bailey report that would go towards that.
One more, and then I'll leave the rest for when we do discuss the item. So I guess that's probably something I can't, and I appreciate, you're new to the role, and there have been your predecessors there where this same question has been posed over a long period of time on many occasions. What do you bring that will assure mana whenua that in fact they will be able to lead, because currently, as it sits after a long period of time, it's in opposition necessarily when you're saying we collaborate. It's not that I want to get into an argument about this, I'm just sort of posing, what do you bring, basically, as the chair for the forum, that hasn't been done in the past?
Good question. Well, as you said, I'm new to the role. I'd like to think I'm... No, I better not say anything like that. It's a good question. I mean, I think that the co-governance needs to happen. The Monaco Harbour is a taonga that has been not looked after very well, and I think mana whenua need to be leading that, and I think that's very well expressed within this report. So your question on what do I bring that's different is possibly hard to quantify now, but I'd just like to say that I would like to be part of those conversations as they go forward.
Kia ora. Councillor Mulholland.
Kia ora. May I acknowledge you, Chair, John and Ellen. Nice to see you again. Just different seats, but it's great to see you here. And I really want to acknowledge the staff for your work on this. I was on the Monaco Harbour Forum, and I am too of the belief that this is an outstanding taonga, and I have to acknowledge that I do live in Green Bay, so right on the edge of it, and I fully support the forum. I believe I was the person that also suggested we increase at a local board level the funding for these. I do want to acknowledge Glenn Boyd, who is a staff member of Auckland Council, who worked tirelessly to assist and aid the outcomes of the forum. Also, I'd like to acknowledge from my perspective the Restoration Society, because it does take a whānau and community to pursue better outcomes. So I fully endorse this, and I've asked to move it. You know, I feel passionately about it. So I do hope you're able to do more. I would like to actually see more funding from this, and it might cause a bit of a upset around the table, but I think we should be putting money into a project like this so that we can protect that waterway. There has been a lot of work done. My question to you too is, because I have to pose a question, just how's everything going in terms of the new forum? I'm learning myself, by the way,
Nice.
so there you go, there's the question.
Well, we've been in hiatus until this report came to you guys, actually. So we only got appointed as chair and deputy chair on Friday. So we acknowledge Councillor Hill and Councillor Papacoon coming to us, and that was really appreciated. But yeah, we understand you're really busy people, but I think one of the things going forward is if we could have maybe a member turn up to our workshops and our meetings going forward. And, you know, if we've got a councillor who's happy to put their hand up and do that on a regular basis, we try and meet on a Friday, so that would be really appreciated, so we can work more collaboratively together going forward.
Kia ora.
But I thank you, Chair.
Oh, no worries. Member Wilcox, and then we've got Councillor Cooper and Councillor Casey.
Thank you, Chair. My first question is regarding mana whenua, and my experience comes from the Kaipara Harbour settlement. So are you working towards settlement of Y8, or are you working in isolation from Y8? I mean, Ngāneko and them put that kaupapa together quite a long time ago, and, you know, my concern is actually that we'll go off on a little tangent and then, hello, here comes settlement, government dumps $100 million and says let's go, and then my email gets full of people I never even knew were doing anything about the kaipara suddenly emailing me, and I'm going, well, what's all this about? But this is the concern I have, is that in the kaipara it was led by iwi and controlled by iwi, and the concern I have is that we're going to go off and do this little kaupapa, and it's all great we have these little things going. I mean, every little bit helps, But my concern is that we're going to kind of get lost, and then crump. Here comes settlement, and it's all kind of going south really fast.
I can
So
do my
that was the question. Is I'm really concerned about why it should be at the forefront of this kaupapa and the settlements that are going around.
So I think John Sutton will probably talk to that when the report comes up. He came out to a meeting and talked both about the kaupapa experience and this. So he would be able to assay your fears probably a lot better than I would be. But we are very, Y8 is foremost in thoughts, and this doesn't preclude that would be the best I could say. I think Richard's probably got a better answer.
Yeah, I guess Member Wilcox is probably a more fuller answer to instead of the new chair and deputy of the local board, Monaco Harbour Forum, where we're moving to, and that space will be part of the report, and the officers will probably have a more fuller answer there of what we discussed at the workshop a few months ago.
One more question, and then are you seeking funds? Because I'm just wondering, is this the committee to be saying? Well, I mean, I'm trying to get the gist of this. I mean, I thought you would have just gone to the Fish and Parkour committee and got and just got the money from them, as opposed to coming to us. I mean, it is an environment issue, but I thought, well, if you're seeking funds, that's the company.
Yeah. I possibly misspoke in seeking funds. The way that the board is run is that the forum is run as the local boards put LDI funding into it, and so for now we should just be talking about the report rather than me coming in with my hand out, I guess. But just to see that the governing body and the local bodies working together, I think, is really important in the future.
Kia ora. Councillor Cooper.
Thank you. It's my questions are along the same lines as Glenn, because we've been on the Kaupapa Moana Working Party for years, and now with the new government working towards a co-governance model, but it was led through the treaty settlement process, and that's why I'm a little bit uncomfortable about this approach. And I guess my question was, because I know that Councillor Crum/Lee was on the forum, and then I think Councillor Josephine Bartley was on, and now it's just a local board thing, where clearly it's not just a local board thing because there's so many local boards. It is regional. And so my question is, are you keen on having members, councillor members whose wards are on the Manukau? That's the thing that I'm interested in, and not having the meetings on days we have meetings. But I think when you talk about working together and a true co-governance and a true partnership as a council family, I'd be really interested if that's where you were heading.
So
So are you interested in that?
Yeah, I guess it seems backwards, but the right thing to do is have the members of the forum to speak first. All of that is part of the workshop we had that largely I felt at the time, the workshop, both IMSB and councillors, was very focused on if we were to move to a co-governance, not that we can say that because we haven't spoken to mana whenua and they may or may not want that. That's why the resolution is around building relationships, including potential for co-governance, was the fact that the Monaco Harbour Forum would stay as a local board advocacy while the process went on going forward for the mayor to go to mana whenua and say what next, and hopefully we would have a future where there was mana whenua and council and local board as the two partners, not three partners. But this is way too early.
Yeah, I guess I'm asking the question because Manukau Harbour, the Waitemata Forum and Kaupapa Moana was a mix of local board and councillors.
Yeah, so
and this isn't, and that's why I don't understand it.
Because that they started like that. This has started as a local
No, they
board.
didn't. They had councillors on there.
Yeah, so the Monaco Harbour Forum has never officially had councillors. Councillors went to the forum, but there was not a official.
That's the question. But anyway, we'll find that out in the. I mean, I haven't actually heard from. You've been answering for these people, sorry, and I wasn't sure who you were at the beginning, but because it wasn't introduced properly, but now I've worked out who you are, and good on you for taking it on.
Kia ora, thank you. I mean, Richard basically covered it. The original Bailey report did have council governing body on it as well, but we believe that the way that this report lays it out and lays out steps towards, not resolution, but steps towards the future is sufficient. Yep. Yeah.
Councillor Casey.
I don't have a question, Richard, but I want to answer Karen's question because I think that that John's too humble. If I may, I just take 2 minutes. What does he bring to the board, you ask, Karen? Thanks, John. I've known John for all the time he's been on the Puki Tapapa local board and probably a year before that. What he does is walk the talk. He's a young, progressive environmentalist. He traps pests on the Waikowhai coast. He did a heritage tour as part of Heritage Week on the Waikowhai coast. I went on it with another 20 or so people. So that's what he does. He's out there. His heart is in the Monaco. That's where he grew up. So it's his passion that's led him to take this role up, and he will be absolutely sensational in the role. And I am absolutely sure the partnership will be instant.
Thank you.
That was great. Councillor Bartley, last question, and then we'll move to the item which we'll be able to get a lot more information.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to add what I can see already from John that he brings to the role is he is talking about the collective. And I haven't heard that before since my time on the Monaco Harbour Forum as a local board chair and then as an observer as a governing body member. So, mentioning the Restoration Society, mana whenua, what the community's doing, local boards, and what council is already doing, I think is a good start for the narrative from the chair of the forum. I was going as an unofficial, informal observer, and I wouldn't mind still continuing with that, but I stopped going because I stopped getting the notification, so it's as simple as that. I do agree that we do need to work together in this stage before any particular process has been developed in terms of how this co-governance will work. Hopefully, if it does work, because I've been at meetings at the forum where mana whenua have been sitting in the public gallery wanting to be involved. And so, we do need something where there's all of us around the table, and also where we have that regional focus, which was the whole point of the research that Glenn was doing. And I acknowledge Glenn because he's been doing this off his own bat. But yeah, it was like, how come there's water quality rate focused on the Central Isthmus, the Central whatever, Waitemata side, and nothing for the Monaco. And now we've got this focus on the kaupara, again, nothing on the Monaco. So how do you get that focus from council, from the regional, onto the Monaco Harbour? So definitely agree we need more regional, more local working together on this. Yeah, thank you.
Kia ora. Kia ora. Thank you, Councillor Bartley. And had moved Councillor Mulholland, and second, did you want to, Councillor Bartley, the move of thanks to the forum?
Oh, no, they're speaking at the item.
Oh, speaking at, well, I will put a motion within the item. Sorry, it's been a long day. So is it fine for both of you to move the recommendations? Now we'll move into the item and get the officers to come forward. Thank you. But we will thank you in the resolutions, but thank you for talking to us. So, thanks, Dave and Setse. If you want to just take us through the presentation and put any other of the background of what's been going on in the last few months into the arena as well. So thank you both.
Tēnā koutou katoa. Good afternoon, councillors and members. I appreciate the opportunity today to basically give you an overview of the work that's been undertaken over the last year since the September 2019 resolution of the Environment and Community Committee to basically seek an evaluation of an external review report on the Monaco Harbour Forum and its operational model, and to basically provide a report back to you on next steps. And I guess part of that whole exercise is to really evaluate where's the added value, where is the opportunity for the council to make some good progress in this whole arena that we've got here in front of us in terms of the harbour outcomes that we're trying to achieve. And so there's a distinction between harbour outcomes and the vehicles that may be used to achieve those outcomes, and that's a very important distinction that we'd like to make in this whole process. So we have a presentation which is about 6 or 7 slides. I'll just sort of open and close and set, so we'll do a bit of the evaluation that we've undertaken. So firstly, as you've heard, the harbour is a tonga, very important water body for Maori. It has high ecological values, and it has similarly amenity, recreation values, and it really connects people to nature. I can also acknowledge that I grew up around the harbour edge as well, so I'm also quite familiar with the harbour. So one of the things, though, that we've recognised, everyone's recognised over many years, is that the overall water quality and ecological health for the Maori of the harbour is not in a good state. Now, of course, it has improved when you think about it in the longer term, in terms of, say, the 50s and 60s and 70s, but it's still got certainly, lots of improvements that are required to get it to a much more desired outcome or state. So, as I mentioned, what we were trying to do with this particular paper was to simply, at the request of the Environment and Community Committee, to provide some advice back to you about this external review report and some of the issues that were encompassed by it, and to highlight some of the opportunity to sort of speak to that kind of collective understanding as to how we should move forward as a council, and to particularly make an effort to do a bit of a stock take of what initiatives were being undertaken across the entire area, and to provide that to you so that you recognise that national, regionally and locally there are a number of activities that actually need to be better integrated. And at the moment, one of the things we observed is that there wasn't necessarily the transparency that all parties might like to actually understand, what is happening in these various levels. And we've talked about, or acknowledged even just now, that local boards were operating with a lack of understanding perhaps about some of the things that were happening maybe at a national or a regional level that might have a bearing on some of their activities. And that's a fair enough comment, and you could equally say that regionally and nationally some of us may not have known what might have been happening at the local level. So this is about saying, doing a stock take, giving you a nice piece of paper to work from, a basis to work from, a foundation, is actually the better way to approach identifying a future direction for the Auckland Council Group. So the intent of this is to provide you with an overview as to what that direction might look like, and then of course to identify the opportunity that presents, particularly with firstly getting Auckland Council Group's house in order, but also then putting you in a better position to how you might want to improve your engagement with mana whenua, with communities and others. So I guess that's sort of the overall context for why we have provided this advice to you. Sets, I'll just hand over to you.
Good afternoon, councillors and committee members. A really important slide here to acknowledge what Dave just said, that outcomes for the harbour, they can be achieved by initiatives at national, regional and local levels. So this slide lays out some of those vehicles to achieve those outcomes at the different levels, and also shows some of the agencies and parties that are responsible for delivering those outcomes. So for example, MFE, MPI and DOC, they've got responsibilities to deliver, to manage the fisheries, conservation areas, threatened species, marine mammals. They've got clear responsibilities in that space. And these agencies, they also prepare national directions, strategies and policies that influence management in the regions, including the Auckland region. And they provide, for example, guidance and national directions on management of freshwater, biodiversity and waste. Looking at Auckland Council's got statutory responsibilities to manage activities that are controlled under the RMA, and they're responsible for delivering outcomes under the Local Government Act and the four well-beings that are in there. Decisions made by the governing body and supporting committees in Auckland Council, like the Planning Committee, but specifically for environmental issues, Environment and Climate Change Committee, they can help to deliver environmental outcomes for the harbour. And what they also do is they can direct the work programs and initiatives of council departments and council-controlled organisations. The Monaco Harbour Forum, there was the external review report. Monaco Harbour Forum is outlined in this diagram. It was established, like I explained before, in 2010 to increase collaboration between the different local boards and increase efficiency of the initiatives they undertake. So they're sitting basically at the they actually are combined efforts for the different local boards to achieve local improvements and guide local initiatives. So basically that they are active at the local level. Maybe next slide. Oh, maybe what I should say, to come back to the previous one, Mana Whenua is there as well. It's hard to put Mana Whenua. It is Mana Whenua sitting in a box, but what the report clearly does acknowledge is that partnerships, collaborations, and engagement with Mana Whenua, there are opportunities to have those collaborations at these different levels, at the national levels, at the regional levels, and at the local levels. So Mana Whenua, there's opportunities for collaboration and partnerships at all those different levels. Then to identify what it is that Auckland Council Group can do to try and improve the outcomes for the harbour. Staff have been working with Monaco Harbour Forum Coordinator on pulling together a stock take that really looks at what is happening at the different levels. So national directions, national strategies, policies, regional strategies and policies, regionally funded initiatives and locally funded initiatives. So we pulled together that stock take, and that's attached to your committee report today. Here's just some examples that are included in that stock take. Maybe the next one. Then the original resolution was asking for some advice on the external review report. Well, the way we've done that is we've considered the different responsibilities and different kind of levers at the different levels. We looked at the different initiatives that are already happening, and then we looked at the recommendations in the report, looking at the 6 themes that are outlined on this diagram, on this slide. We came up with some recommendations which are included in the report, and we've tested some of those recommendations with Monaco Harbour Forum members in February, June and October, and we also had a workshop with ENCC members where we outlined our thinking to date.
Okay, so as we've said, we've got some recommendations in the agenda report. They do provide, in a very high-level way, a sense of direction going forward in terms of what Auckland Council staff are recommending to you. One of the key things we're trying to do is to say what are the building blocks that are now available to you to actually get a common understanding as to how you can move forward. And we feel that if you look at the Auckland Council Group activities, they're extensive. And there's really a need to identify some of those key outcomes across all of the different themes that we're involved with. Some of them may conflict with some of the activities and impacts on the environment. We need to actually look at some of those gaps and some of those conflicts and actually ask the question, how are we going to reconcile some of those initiatives? Council will need to obviously start to pin down what the priorities actually are. Obviously, you're very mindful of the budget that you're operating under now. So there's a real need to start to look at the funding mechanisms that might be available to you and how they might be leveraged or prioritised as well. And clearly throughout this whole process, you need to consider how you involve different people through this whole exercise, looking ahead in terms of how you actually set a direction for the harbour. One of the things that is in the report, and as mentioned by the Monaco Harbour Forum Chair and Deputy Chair just before, was that they supported, and I think Councillor Bartley also made the observation, a greater role for the ECC committee to have a bit of oversight in the council's group's overall approach, and that's sort of really speaking to that point about providing a more collective understanding as to what's going on and how these various activities that you're involved with are actually delivering on the outcomes that are sought. And we have also heard about some of the CCO activities that we need to perhaps get a better handle on sort of the progress of some of those. And, you know, there is perhaps one or two outstanding items that we have just heard about. There is work going on in that space in terms of the water care model that NIWA is doing for water care. I understand it's a complex piece of work and it's been broken down into some smaller chunks to make it actually complete. I don't have it on top of my head when that is going to be complete, but it's something that we can follow up, you know, as just a matter beyond this committee. But the key thing here is to say that initiative, as one example, is just one source of information to help inform you as to how you are going to set your direction and priorities. And so we need to look at all those tools and bring them together and actually give you some advice as to kind of how you might then make some clear decisions about what are the key outcomes you would like to see. So and I guess the other thing is that when you have that sort of landscape painted for you a little bit in terms of the priorities and the outcomes that you seek, you can then perhaps look at how you can use that information in your council group activities, including the possibility of how you have discussions with mana whenua and how you look at working with mana whenua to acquire a shared vision for how this might be something that you wish to progress. Bearing in mind, of course, that there's some longer term expectations of treaty settlement. This is about how can Auckland Council perhaps position itself well with mana whenua leading up to any treaty settlement between the Crown and mana whenua. And I think that's kind of just another observation to note, is that this is about putting you in the best position possible before you get to that next stage of the treaty settlement and actually having an understanding as to the kinds of activities that you're doing before that point. So the actual resolutions that we have put there speak to the need for the Monaco Harbour Forum to continue its focus and its collaborative purpose to ensure that there's increased visibility as to all the different activities that are going on in the Auckland Council group through things like stock takes and annual reviews and updates of those stock takes, to recognise that next February you should have a State of the Environment report coming out which will identify a range of information sources and states as to what is actually happening within the harbour, and that there'll be REMU, Research and Evaluation Unit, have agreed to providing a bit of a synthesis of information that relates to the harbour specifically. So that's actually going to be a couple of months after the February general Auckland region-wide State of the Environment report. There's existing projects and programs that are been undertaken with mana whenua and council departments. Those need to continue, and there's opportunity obviously for strengthening of those as we proceed. And also lastly, there's the opportunity to say that there may be some further initiatives or avenues to explore the development of new projects where there are gaps that we might be able to identify, or funding opportunities from central government, and that's something that's a possibility in the near future. And lastly, the resolution there about, you know, what we'd like the committee to consider is making the statement here about building better relationships with council and mana whenua around the harbour in a more strategic way, trying to get a better overview of the range of activities that are happening at that scale, and that would possibly include a discussion about how you might approach governance going forward in terms of how mana whenua might see that in terms of their relationship to central government, but also how they might want to look at their relationship with council in this particular harbour. So that's a bit of an overview of the review we've done. As mentioned, we were hoping to bring this review to you perhaps 6 months ago, but COVID sort of came along, and then we sort of, had a lot of difficulty getting workshops together. We wanted to just touch base with the forum because of their direct interest in this, given that they commissioned the work. We had a very positive meeting with the forum where Councillor Coombe and Hills were there about a month ago. And I think the workshop from the 2nd of September with ECC committee was also quite useful in terms of getting an indication as to how we should proceed in a stepwise basis going forward. So I think I'll leave it there, Richard.
Kia ora. Thank you. We have a few questions, and we might also at one point maybe need John Hutton to maybe come to the table if we just end up discussing the potential for future co-governance. Councillor Newman.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to officers. I apologise for not being available on the 16th of October. That was the day after my mother died, so I've been a bit absent from this conversation for several months, but I have a number of questions regarding this report and earlier variations of it. If I were to request a copy of an earlier draft through my CSA or through a Legoima, what would the draft recommendations say, and how would they differ from what's in this final report?
So this one of the points that I think you're probably interested in is where we look at exploring the co-governance angle, and I guess what we're saying there is that we want to basically ensure that we've got a good understanding of how the council can prepare itself for any discussions in that light, and what we're trying to say is that there's actually a lot of work in-house for Auckland Council to do to actually get us in a good position to do that. But we're also recognising that one way to make that a more general statement is to say that there's a desire to build better relationships with mana whenua, and that we haven't expressed exactly how that might occur in this particular paper, because we need to have that discussion with mana whenua, and I guess we're just seeking the support of the committee in that for that direction.
Okay, so that to me says that there has been a change in relation to a recommendation to mana whenua. That's interesting. What can you just give me a sort of a précis of what would be that work internally that we would need to do to be sort of fit and ready for that conversation?
So I think we need to firstly understand, as Auckland Council needs to understand firstly what programs of work it is actually undertaking, what are some of the background statements that sort of would give our councillors an understanding as to the state of the environment, and equally the relationships that we might also need to form or to pursue to actually have a conversation with mana whenua. We've obviously had some discussions with mana whenua over the years about particular initiatives, but we would need to build on the work we've done here in terms of a stock take and sort of understanding the lay of the land and what the opportunities might be to actually engage in some of that discussion.
Okay, I think there's quite a bit of knowledge and capacity in this space.
Sure.
I mean, reflecting on what I've learned about the Kaipara Moana remediation, I need to reflect to the Mayor and Councillor Cooper, because on reflection, she needs to be part of that, not me, because there's a lot of experience and history. I want to talk to her about that. But if based on what I have observed in terms of the success of these sorts of partnerships and discussions in that context, it seems to be a lot more confident than this. This seems pretty timid. It seems very, very early, and I think that there would be quite an interest if we were to explore this with mana whenua for quite an expansive relationship. And I think we should celebrate that, not be afraid of it. So what's the timing for this?
Yes, I'll just make the observation about the Kaipara, and that we had, or I personally was obviously, doing some preliminary work to help set up some of that process subsequently. So there was a bit of a staged process there, and I'm just sort of saying that there's an opportunity here as well with the Monaco. But I just, what the timing-wise, what we're looking at is possibly looking over the next few months to start to bring together some of the staff involved with this area and look at how we might approach this going forward.
One final question with your indulgence, Chair. So there's actually quite a few things that are happening from a council perspective in relation to the harbour, and there's quite a few other things that could happen. I think you've got some strong support politically. I mean, I'm very supportive of extending that water quality target rate and actually ramping it up, because it's time for the good people of St Heliers to refund the people of Monaco for all the poos and wees we've been taking for generations. You've got some support. You've got some support, and there's quite a lot of work that has been undertaken. The problem that I'm seeing is that with what I think is quite a slow and early process here, in order to inform what I think is going to be a difficult discussion through the 10-year plan, I worry that actually we're going to miss some of this, or we're going to come into it quite shallow, because actually we haven't been able to progress all the work that we need to do to inform what would a blueprint for improvements on that harbour look like, with or without a settlement. Because we need to do something, not just sit around waiting for a settlement process between mana whenua and the Crown.
Yes, so I'm not suggesting we sit around and do nothing in that sense. I guess the key thing is, like, there's a whole lot of work to be done to actually understand what we are doing now, and how some of the initiatives that are being discussed in terms of moving forward, how are they going to be adequately covered off. So there's a little bit of analysis and evaluation from an environmental strategy point of view in terms of what we're doing, but there's a separate sort of issue about how we might look at our relationship with mana whenua and how best to progress that, given that we haven't had that discussion with mana whenua. So
Yeah, and is there any more discussion on this? Because I agree, Councillor Newman, I was a bit gung-ho, and my original thoughts for this would be the paper that sets up co-governance, but I was quickly told that that's not exactly how this, like, we don't just project what we want to happen as the outcome. It's the conversation first. So I guess, and I'm not putting words in Councillor Newman's mouth, but I guess for my thoughts, how do we ensure that what we know we want to be asking can happen, and it doesn't just drag for, because obviously better relationships is great, and now we've got part of the resolution thankfully saying exploring a new approach to governance, but I guess what does that look like?
Thank you. If I can make a couple of observations. I think Resolution C is an important one because it provides a mandate to progress a conversation, and that hasn't been present yet. The difference with the Monaco to the Kaipara is that the Crown hasn't marched in yet in the Monaco and started a treaty settlement conversation. So there is a preliminary phase here which I think is quite important for the Council to initiate a conversation with mana whenua and say, is this actually even the appropriate time to look at this? And I mean, I don't want to presume any views that would be made there, but I think that preliminarily walking before we run step is quite important. The resolution here gives us that. And in practical terms, my view is that if you are going to start that kind of conversation, it needs to come at a senior political level in the first instance, and staff can work closely with the political representation here around the table, provide advice, and get the ball rolling on that front. So if this resolution is passed, we can get that kind of work underway, and we can work collaboratively across the council family between the different departments who've got expertise and skills here.
Cool, thank you very much. Member Wilcox.
Yeah. So, like I said earlier, the Kaipara kaupapa was led by Te Uri o Hau through IKHMG. We don't seem to have anything similar. It seems to be like a lot of organisations around it, trying to make this kind of corridor happen, if this thing happen. And I'm just trying to understand this shared vision. I thought mana whenua have already made that shared vision pretty clear in Y8, what they wanted. So, I mean, the reality is, no matter what our vision is, our first response is to respond to their shared vision, to their vision. And you know, there's nothing in there that kind of makes me weird or anything. It's just, I'm just kind of trying to ask this question. Isn't their vision already there in Y8? That's the first.
Yes, so there's certainly some very clear statements in Y8 as to certain outcomes that are expected. I think the other thing is that central government, through all their different policy instruments, have got some visionary statements as well. And so there's going to be a need to sort of just, you know, bring all those together. And then, like, how do you think about that in the context of the Auckland Council operation? And so really what we're saying here is that, you know, we're at that kind of very foundational level in terms of drawing those visionary statements together, some of the statutory obligations that we're required to adhere to, and having that corridor around like, so how does that then have, how do you translate that into this particular harbour and the issues there?
My next question really, and I suppose it's still based on this corridor of where's the government in all of this. So, you know, the reality is the government will make the decision through their Settlement Act for Y8. And I go back to the corridor of Chris Finlayson. I make the decision and Cabinet puts the stamp on it, and councils will just do what they're told. So I'm guessing that it's going to be a lot much smoother now, but all the same, you know, this is the issue is that we actually don't have the government in the box. So where is the approach from this level?
If I can take that one. The situation's interesting here because until the Crown commits its resource to starting a treaty settlement negotiation, effectively we have a void. And the challenge for the council is that a satisfactory situation right now? And if we're looking at 2-3 years or potentially longer. In the Kaipara, we had the fortunate coming together of a treaty settlement conversation that brought people around the table, built trust, built understanding. Then we were able to run a separate matter around seeking funding for environmental remediation. But the outcome of the Kaipara is still the treaty settlement negotiation has not been concluded. It may be concluded in the first 6 months of next year. It then has about 18 months to run before legislation is passed. But in the intervening time, we have formed a collaborative mechanism, a governance mechanism under the Local Government Act to run what we need to run. So the question would be, and this is where we genuinely don't know where this should go, and we don't want to, our advice would not be to rock up to mana whenua and say, here, we think this is the solution. And that's why this, you know, let's take some steps to start with before we go to an end game. So here we've got that gap. There's no treaty settlement negotiation, but there are good, strong relationships in Auckland that have been built up over time, and that there's a pretty good understanding at a local level what the mana whenua desires and interests are here. So the idea is step forward, see if there is an opportunity here that the mana whenua will be able to bring a better understanding of what the Crown's timetable might be. And of course, we can talk to the Crown too, but it's bringing those things together in a careful, stepped out way that I think's what's required.
So my final question is, and it's a bit of a statement, but at the workshop, you know, I'm going to go to this korero, te kai o te rangatira ko te korero. And actually, you know, if we want to move it, we're playing with the big boys here. Actually, the big boys are iwi leaders and our mayor, not us little people in the room. We're little rangatira, but they're the big rangatira. And in that way, or Karen mightn't be, she's one of those big ones. But, yeah, but, you know, I suggested at that time that actually if we wanted to move forward with this kaupapa in a definitive way with mana whenua, we needed that discussion with the mayor's office or the mayoral route first. I'm not saying that I'm telling the mayor what to do, but it was a suggestion that was a way we could kind of break this deadlock where we're not talking to mana whenua, and it's talking rangatira to rangatira first, because if we don't get that governance thing is mana whenua still sit in that box out there somewhere, and we're just not going to be there. And the reality is the governance thing is actually going to be, you know, from the way I see in Kaipara, is that it's going to be it's going to be the council and the mana whenua. So, I mean, unless we get that buy-in right at the start, mana whenua are going to just temo in, you know, just pick in and pick out where they want to go. And I don't think that won't even happen, you know, and I think that's the concern, because the mana whenua are always fixated, sadly, on getting our settlements through, because, you know, the oceans are our last taonga. We lost the land and we're getting a little bit back, but it's only a percentage, but we still feel that we still have control over our oceans and our water. So it's really important for us that be occurring at a high level. So I just wondered, did you make the approaches to the mayor's office and get a response?
Do you want me to comment on that?
I did.
Thanks, Glenn. Yeah, look, I understand that mana whenua wanted on a rangatira ki rangatira basis, and I'm more than happy to meet with representatives of the iwi. I think we have 12 on the Monaco, and we've got 9 local boards. But if we think that's hard, when I was Minister for the Environment back in the 1980s and working with Nanako Minhinnick, we had 29 local councils, and one of the impossibilities was actually getting people together to begin to do something. I think we should take great heart from what happened up in the Kaipara, and you and I were both there to enjoy that sense of making history there. And if we and the local boards and the local communities and in partnership with mana whenua work together, then our case as a united group with clear objectives becomes much stronger in terms of our advocacy through to central government. What we were able to do up the Kaipara was predominantly on the basis of 100 million that we got out of central government. And I think where the treaty settlement may come in really, really helpful is that is a form of leverage by mana whenua to start to remediate a century and a half of damage to the Monaco. And we should all feel quite passionate about that. I, at various times in my life, have lived on the edge of the Monaco, and I know how degraded it is. And I know that we took second step. I'm not going to blame Ōrākei because Desley's getting sensitive about it. I'm going to blame St Mary's Bay and Herne Bay. You know, nobody would have put landfills on those places. Nobody would have put transmission lines across them. Nobody would have built a motorway across them. Nobody would have put landfills like Waikowhai and Pikes Point on them. So we've got a really strong case. There's been so much damage done. What we need to be is clear-minded and united as to how we prioritise the changes that need to be made. And one of the interesting things about this paper is actually we didn't even have a very good stock take of what was happening, because we didn't know always what the local boards were doing, or mana whenua didn't know what we were doing, or we didn't know what mana whenua was doing. So a joined-up approach, I think, is really important. And in terms of the next step, I think probably sometime early in the new year, we need to organise a hui with mana whenua and sort out where priorities are and how we can best work together to achieve the objectives that I'm sure that we'll share. So hopefully that's helpful in answering your question.
Thank you, Mayor. I have to move an extension of time. Then I have Member Wilson. Thank you. All those in favour? Aye. And then I have Member Wilson and Councillor Cooper. Member Wilson, Councillor Cooper on questions, and then we'll... Member Wilson.
I'm actually glad I've come in this part of the order because I'd hate to be accused of disparaging comments, to be fair. There's a lot in there that the kōrero, as I'm looking at the recommendations, isn't really giving me any sense of understanding. For instance, the continuation of the Monaco Harbour Forum. What has that to do with the kōrero that's been expressed about concerns for mana whenua? So how does the continuation of the Monaco Harbour Forum, when it's been acknowledged that the membership is local board focus, how that, and there will be investment to ensure there's a continuation. So I'm going to try and be as pragmatic as I can and not get into really what I want to say, because I think that's unhelpful, although John's there, and when I do get to those points, I'll be expecting him to answer those. So what I'm wanting to understand, if the kōrero that I'm hearing, specifically from Mayor Goff, acknowledges that a key component of this around not the harbour, the taonga, that is for mana whenua, but that's down at quite a way down, and I don't understand how specifically by way of all of these that is a good segue or launch into a partnership with mana whenua. It doesn't express that at all. Is it that there's a handoff approach because the treaties are in line? You talked about a stock take, and Aroha, I haven't been to the workshops in order to get to the detail. It doesn't in any way, shape or form reflect anything that talks to the key partnership or relationship with mana whenua. It talks to the continuation of the forum, talks to increased visibility of the council initiatives and all those sorts of things. How's that relevant to Y8, to the Monaco, which is a taonga, a harbour, the increased emphasis on mana whenua support? Where is that emphasised as a priority is really my first question.
So just to reiterate that the report or the review that we've provided here reflects the themes and recommendations that were contained within the external review report. So it talks about a range of things, including the currency of the forum, what funding support is necessary for the forum to operate, what is the council in a broader sense doing. So the nature of the recommendations in this report reflect that broader range of considerations that we needed to report back on. Certainly the issue about how we look at governance arrangements in terms of, for example, the suggestion that councillors should be somehow on the forum was one thing that we considered. The other thing we considered was the relationships with mana whenua, which was a key element in that external review report. So I guess what I'm saying is that the themes that came through in this agenda report here reflect the full range of issues that were canvassed by the external review report. And what we're attempting to do with this review report is to highlight in C particularly, as well as the B5, the importance of the relationship with mana whenua, both in terms of existing programs and projects, but secondly to actually look at how do we more strategically think about the future and our relationship with mana whenua, and that opens that discussion about what things like Y8 and what other things do you want to bring onto the table when we have that conversation, or council has that conversation.
I'd have to say, Mr. Chair, I'm not seeing that this is going to the heart of what, I get what you're saying, but literally it's, as we've heard from the presentation that was given by the chair for the Monaco Harbour Forum, this is in support of that, even though they have little understanding of this. So the confidence I guess I would have in supporting the continuation hasn't been allayed by way of the rest of the recommendations you're making. So you've looked at the continuation of the forum. We did have a presentation that indicated, I'm going to do my supported by Councillor Casey. I know the measure of the people, the measure of the man, but I know not at all what it is that the forum will be doing, given that it hasn't been completed over many years. What am I doing supporting this with new heads that gives me assurance that money will be well spent in terms of the support of that forum? And then we go on to the more lower level things, which are initiatives, because it's about Auckland Council, I understand the state of the environment, and then further down, strength and collaboration, and you're almost seeming to imply that that will come by way of, I don't know, is it the forum or someone's going to, when we're sitting here, I don't understand any of that and why that would form part of a recommendation when we spend a lot of the time as IMSB talking about ongoing engagement and consultation with mana whenua. It does not feature anywhere here to demonstrate where that would occur or why even. Can you explain that to me? John, you might be able to better understand the point I'm trying to get to.
If I may try and interrupt a little bit. Member Wilson, we don't need to support the continuation of the Monaco Harbour Forum because it's not up to us. It's a local board forum set up by local boards and funded by local boards. I guess the report was that we would support them being in an advocacy role at this stage because we could not disband them if we wanted to. But the overall goal and what the workshop was that with a Monaco Harbour Forum existing in its current way or not, the workshop of this committee said that the overall goal was co-governance. I would love if it was written in there more prescript, but I've been told it's not right to jump to the solution as myself, and that we need to go to mana whenua and ask what they would want.
But it is still through the chair, it is in the advocacy that I'm still referencing, whether it be we can't disband them. I'm not saying that. I'm talking about using in the advocacy role when there isn't one currently, I guess is really what I'm referencing, and to provide some support in that manner. So we got, John, I'm hoping, if I can through the chair, I'm hoping that you will hit the points that I'm trying to get, and I'm big one there, John, but I'm confident that you understand the priorities, the passion. You name all of these things that this is going to be viewed in terms of the Monaco Harbour, and then in the context of how Auckland Council, so rather than relying on a more technical approach, I'm expecting you to somehow meld those views and those wants together to express.
Kia ora, Karen, I might just have to resign. I don't know if I can get to that point. Look, humour aside, this report's serving a function as part of a longer conversation triggered by the Monaco Harbour Forum when they commissioned an independent review of themselves. And so there's a whakapapa here that takes us to where this report is right now. And I think what's happening is we've got a bit of confusion between that genealogy up to now and this opening a discussion around what is the future of the governance space around the Monaco. Now, what we've got is an uneven landscape that's been developing in Auckland, where we have a Hauraki Golf Forum. It's a statutory body. We've got a fair bit of progress now on the kaipara, although no statutory body is yet created. We know that the Crown is committed through the Tamaki Makaurau, Mana Whenua Tamaki Makaurau Collective Redress Act and the deed there. The Crown has committed to provide treaty settlement redress over the Monaco. But that commitment was made in 2013, 2014, aroha mai. And since then, there's been a hiatus on that conversation. And I'm aware that the Crown has reached out a few times to mana whenua and said, hey, we know that this is a conversation we need to have, but it hasn't really been happening, to be frank. In the meantime, we have a harbour that the consciousness around both this table and the wider community has really been growing about issues of water quality and there seems to be a request at a political level to make sure that a focus and a lens can be brought on it. We have, as council, we have not started a conversation with mana whenua about governance on these matters, and we haven't had a mandate to really do that. What the resolution does here today is it provides a committee of the whole level mandate to start that conversation, which I think is a positive move, and as His Worship the Mayor has spoken, he's prepared to start that conversation. Now, I've in the advice that we're giving, we've been very reluctant to, because we basically, it never works out well if a council or anybody rocks up to a collective of iwi leaders and says, here, we've got the solution for you. And then just lay out that kind of thing. What we want to make sure we do here very carefully is start a conversation and make sure that we're able to not prejudge anything as we walk into the room. So again, this is what I think this resolution does, and if it's passed, it'll allow those kind of steps to be taken. All of this does, of course, recognise, and I hope I'm now getting to the heart of the passion here. It does recognise the long-standing interests, passion, the connection of mana whenua to the Monaco, and the acknowledgement that things there need to be better. Kia ora.
Thank you, John. You won't need to resign. My kōrero to you, the Chair, I guess what I find missing specifically is the significance of that co-governance. As I'm reading here, it's wrapped in and around some of the, because it's talking to the report clearly, and how those would be talked to. It's talking about more lower level technical matters that can be addressed by way of passing the resolution, but it doesn't actually hit exactly what you're talking about, John. And this has been an issue of some standing for some time that is significant, but it gets lost other than by way of C, if you're not. So how do you ensure that that's front and centre of what will be potentially a really strong collaborative relationship or not for Auckland Council if it isn't looked at in the right manner, in the right context, in the right level of priority? That's probably, because right now it focuses on that one in terms of the bullet points there. So as long as, if you're not here, I would have railed against it because it's not reflecting accurately what the concerns would be for mana whenua, as opposed to having you there and explaining it in that context. I can see it now, but not in the way that it's been written up, if you understand my meaning. So as long as that is made clear, you might have to record what you just said, John, then I guess we're a lot more confident as IMSB to ensure that if that is the means that needs to happen to get this piece of work, then okay. But make sure it's clear as to what it is that we're supporting or not.
If there are additional words to add, or do you feel confident at this stage that to the resolution? Or, I mean, the discussions, I feel this is where we're going prior to this, but I just want to ensure we get the wording. Member Wilcox.
Yes, Chair. Look, I think C needs to be right at the start, or under A, because we're just receiving the report. I think C is the bottom line. We need to get into the big world now, and B, it kind of plays around the edges, but C is where we really are going.
Is it okay, Sandra, to move C up to the top? Perfect. Do we have any more questions? And otherwise we can go into speaking to the resolutions. Okay. Councillor Mulholland, and you are the mover. Did you just want to? Yep.
Thanks, Chair. And I really appreciate the feedback from IMSB, because when I sat on the forum, very clearly I heard some views and opinions, and it was only one term of mana whenua, and I was really concerned, and I want to tutuka what Josephine said. She was there, I was a chair, new to her, and I was really proud to have Josephine sit there and I've actually got a nice photo of us both at the forum. So when I was there, and now here, that's fine, but I understood this was the principle of what the forum were wanting to achieve, is so that mana whenua could have a voice and would have a strong voice, because there was a lot of upset in that room many times, and it was embarrassing because mana whenua felt they didn't have a voice. So I thought this would bring about that process, and I understand, and I just want clarity again, that this is 9 local boards. They are like the friends of the Monaco Harbour. They are one party, and they are asked, that I thought, because we funded this report when I was there, that this was about bringing together parties so that everyone was involved. There was that level of co-governance. So I've also been told today, just so that it's very clear too, after moving this, that, because I was, well, why can we not have a councillor sit there? Because I can see 2 councillors who are really keenly interested to sit alongside IMSB. So I've been told that's not this process, of which, I'm not overly happy about, but I get it. I just think it just sort of seems like and listening to what's been said, did this really achieve the outcomes of what was wanted? Because when I sat there, I felt it was very clear as the chair of the whānau board who contributed, who asked for more money to go to it, that it would come to Auckland Council governing body so that it could have a stronger voice, and there would be that co-governance. So happy to support that, but I'm only happy to support that on the terms that IMSB are okay with what's in front of them, because if they're not, because I thought it was just like a small group really of boards that contributed a small amount of funding, and it didn't have the weighting we wanted it to have. So long as you're happy with that, otherwise I'll withdraw moving it, because I think it's important that we have a shared relationship, because I don't ever want to sit in a room like that again and watch the pain that and the suffering. I felt that there wasn't a voice, and there was meant to be a very strong voice at the table in the forum. So happy to take thoughts on that. If you're comfortable with me moving that, I'm fine, but otherwise I'm happy to withdraw it. Yeah, and that's a very fair point. Thanks, Councillor Cooper. So I'd really appreciate, is it okay for me to, and I would like to ask Director IMSB if that's right. Are you comfortable with me moving it?
Well, everyone's got their speaking turn now, so we've stopped the questions. So if you had moved it, Councillor Mulholland, so you've spoken to it. Councillor Cooper, did you want to speak to the resolution?
No, I did actually, because I just think there's 2 separate conversations going on here. One is about that conversation that begins the relationship between Auckland Council, the Crown and mana whenua to create some sort of co-governance model eventually, a la Kaipara. And the pathway to that was quite different from what's being proposed here. And I also thought that, so for me, this is mixing it up too much. Because for the local boards, originally it was about advocating, but it was also about, my understanding, streamlining all the projects that they had to know what each other was doing, which is really important, because you can maximise your resources, you can be complementary, you can, get good bang for your bucks, and you can get a picture of what are we doing as a council at local board level, but also what we've sort of been missing is putting that together with what we're doing at a regional level. And some people have said we've done nothing. I mean, yes, absolutely a huge chunk of the water quality targeted rate is going to the central interceptor at the moment, because it has to, and that's the most important thing at the moment. But there are quite a lot of projects, especially on the northern part of the Manukau, down in Titirangi or Waitakere Ranges area, where we're looking at stormwater overflows and bad plumbing, etc., that's really affecting positively the outflows from that northern part of Manukau. So what I see is that, if you look at the IKMG, which is the, hang on, I have to always get the letters mixed up, Integrated Kaipara Harbour Management Group, that Kaipara Harbour conversation and where we've got to now was started with that, and that was really mana whenua, Crown agencies, community groups and other parties and sponsors got together and then started to lead that. Mana whenua are involved. And so for me, having this group, local boards have got very good, I get where you're coming from, and it's really that we need to know what they're all doing. That's important so we can see where our resources are going. But to then step up to, now we want to be the advocate, because it says that the purpose was to advocate. Well, to whom? This is what I'm not understanding. I don't think it's appropriate for this group to be advocating to the Crown, to the treaty settlements. That is, I completely support what Glenn and Karen are saying. That's a rangatira to rangatira conversation, which is outside of this conversation. There's common support from the Monaco Harbour Forum, of course, but having sat around the table and standing on the shoulders of the good work that Councillor Penny Webster did, and then working with Councillor Sayers and Brenda Steele from Rodney, along with the Kaipara Uri, that's where those conversations happen, not at a project base, and that sort of happened with the Kaipara work. IKHM sat to the side, kept on doing their projects, and then will be involved with that remediation money. So then that's a really good forum for that, to be overseeing projects, all of that sort of thing. Advocating is part of us, but I just see that we're going to mix it up too much, and then when we get to that point where we want to be actually starting those conversations with mana whenua when they're ready, we're going to trip over ourselves. We're going to have the poor old Monaco Harbour Forum going, oh no, we're not in that, but oh no, what's happening now? It needs to be really clear where we're going. I support the Monaco Harbour Forum and what they're doing, and I absolutely support the fact that we're going to be reported back, because there's so much information goes one way and not the other in this family, as we don't know half the projects that are happening, but the local boards know everything we're doing. And so I think this is a really good coming back so we can understand what's happening, and if we think something's really useful and it fits in with part of our regional program, we can bolster it. And so I think that's a really good way of doing that. But I don't want to see these two conversations coming back to a committee together anymore. One is Monaco Harbour Forum. The other one is any efforts we decide to make as this committee in a whole different report, with probably John backing it and Dave and the people. You know, it's a different kind of thing. So I'm really passionate about, and I hate that word, I'm very firm about that. I am. I actually think we're going to trip over ourselves, and I don't want us to do that, because when we get to the level of these really important conversations with mana whenua, backing up the Y8 rulings from the Waitangi Tribunal, we've got to be really clear about what we do, and we need to be working in partnership, but also led by mana whenua. So that's where I'm at with this. So I'm happy with this as long as we are very clear that this is not mixed up next time we see it. And that is not the role, for me, I don't support that as the role of the Monaco Harbour Forum, advocating. They can be advocating to the council, but not to treaty settlements, that sort of stuff. They're a project group as far as I'm concerned. That's how I see it.
Kia ora, thank you, Councillor Cooper. And this is probably a good lesson for me as a chair, that I should have moved it and then I could have explained. So this...
I just think, yeah, that I think we have an option to move. It doesn't just fall to you as a chair, because you're chairing. So I think we will have an option to move if we like. Sorry.
No, well, this is my speaking turn then. So this all has come through the process of... I'll take right back. So the review that the Monaco Harbour Forum paid for themselves out of their money, this is the findings that we were asked to report from last term. We had a workshop. It was during lockdown, so it was difficult, but and I made sure that I felt like I got the room behind what I was myself and Councillor Coombe were taking to the Monaco Harbour Forum, and it was clear to me that the voices around the room were the Monaco Harbour Forum is in charge of their own destiny. We don't control that. They are, and I'm not saying they're advocating to government or mana whenua, but they will. All the resolutions in here are responding because we were required to respond to the review, and all of these parts, including the stock take and all of that, is responding to the review. What also came out of the last workshop was the strong will of the room, including IMSB members, Daniel Newman, everyone around the table was very clear that we needed to start a new process that was a co-governance type model, much like or similar to Hauraki Golf or Kaipara Moana, but those are very different as they are. So the issue that Councillor Coombe and I then took, once we'd spoken to staff, was we went to the Monaco Harbour Forum and they said, we would like to continue as a group together, working on the Monaco Harbour together, especially because this could be years before a purposeful system is set up for the, or a co-governance role is set up. So this is not meant to be mashed up together. There is no confusion. Well, when I went to the Monaco Harbour Forum, there was no confusion about the roles. The mayor will go to mana whenua, and mana whenua will be in charge of the destiny of the governance over the Monaco Harbour. And then the Monaco Harbour Forum stays in its role because they want to be a collective of local boards, as you say, doing projects, keeping us honest, making sure that Healthy Waters is updating them as the local version of that. Potentially, once we have a co-governance model, if that is the direction, the members of that forum will be part of the co-governance, much like there are councillors and local board members on the Hauraki Golf Forum. No, but this is what, again, this is what we've...
Point of
Okay.
order, Mr. Chair,
Yeah,
you're making a speech. You shouldn't be getting interrupted like
Yeah,
that.
so this has been a very complicated situation, but Councillor Coombe and I have tried our best to get everyone's views again into what we are doing. This is not, from a staff perspective, confusing, and the Monaco Harbour Forum are together. So this is not about the Monaco Harbour Forum going to mana whenua to do that work. That is the mayor who will be doing that role, and then whatever happens into the future. So I guess maybe we should have had a second workshop after the findings were all together, but there was no time for that, unfortunately. So, Councillor Newman.
Chair, I want to thank you for the good work that you're doing and for the, I think, your sincere effort to try and facilitate a complex issue. Members of the governing body and mana whenua are not ex officio members of the Monaco Harbour Forum. It is their product. And I thank the local boards for their commitment in relation to their advocacy and for projects that they want to advocate for the betterment of the harbour. I think that the challenge now is to decouple that conversation with the need to advance, and look, they are not, they're not wholly separate, but there is a different stream of work now, and that is a stream of work that starts with what is the council doing on the harbour and what can the council do in partnership with mana whenua and with central government and with landowners to improve water quality and to improve the health of the harbour. And secondly, at a political level, what steps will be taken to facilitate that outcome, and it will almost certainly be led by the mayor. As the portfolio lead for this harbour, I would like to have a line of sight to that. And there are people sitting around this table who I'm sure who need to input. I mean, Councillor Cooper and Councillor Dalton and Councillor Filipaina, three names spring to mind. And that is a conversation which is urgent, with a need to facilitate a collaborative, co-designed model with mana whenua, which may in the future have the benefit of being a model for co-governance if a settlement process were to be successfully concluded. Concurrent to that, Chair, there is clearly a need to settle some of the issues that we have in relation to regional funding, partnered funding with central government and with planning and with consenting and with landowner stewardship in relation to the harbour. And I'd like to think that the Mayor will be an active partner in that process, working alongside councillors and officers to ensure that we can advance that, and that this will be synchronised as part of a work stream which will be happening very shortly. That's how I interpret it, Chair. And if that's the purpose of these resolutions, then fine. But the key challenge will be to ensure that the Mayor can represent us as part of that mana whenua relationship and how we design that relationship in Resolution B, which I do think is very urgent.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Coon. Okay,
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would like to speak in support of this and recognise that it is in two parts. It is the management, the Auckland Council management, and what we're doing to improve the Monaco Harbour and what visibility we have over our work programme. And the other part is the moving to co-governance. And I think we might be getting a bit teachy, but we're all actually agreeing each other and heading in the right direction, and also have got the same heart. I think our heart is all in the right place. And how I know this is because when we had the workshop, Matua Glenn gave us a really, really clear talking to and basically said that we can't do any tinkering with the Monaco Harbour Forum. We can't add on councillors or think of co-governance in terms of local boards and governing body or add on mana whenua, because that isn't co-governance. It's not a true model of how we should be working towards going forward in terms of treaty settlements, in terms of the aspirations of mana whenua. So I hope I've understood that was correct at what you said to us at the workshop. And it was really awesome that you said it too, because what I thought was amazing, and it was one of our online workshops, I think it was in the second lockdown, so we were all online, so you couldn't read any body language, but no one disagreed. And that was quite a game changer, that we've come so far that we can talk about co-governance and everyone got it. So then I think it was useful that the Chair has given us a bit of the background of where we got to, because we were then able to go to the Monaco Harbour Forum, and I totally acknowledge Alan and John, awesome to have you here with us in the room, because I know that Monaco Harbour Forum has been looking for recognition, doing a whole lot of the hard work behind the scenes. They are basically, they are like the friends of the Monaco Harbour when there were no friends within council, and in terms of that council relationship with the harbour. And they have really just kept that going, and they were looking for more support from us as governing body, more input from IMSB. But because we had a really clear direction from that workshop, we were able to go to them with our council support team and really explain the kaupapa and talk it through, and we all landed in a great place in terms of understanding that there was a role for the continuation of the Monaco Harbour Forum as a group of local boards doing the mahi. There was a role for us to be focusing our work programs as a council on what we were going to do for the Monaco Harbour, and then there was the co-governance, which, as has been said, is really urgent, and the process that it has to follow in terms of rangatira ki rangatira. So it's great that the Mayor's keen to take that up. I think we've had really clear direction, IMSB members. I hope you feel that that is taking us to the right place. I would like B to have been written in stronger language, but I think we all understand, and we've heard from John Hutton, that this is giving a mandate to be able to basically start that conversation so that we're not coming from a point of presuming what the end game should be. So I also just wanted to speak to support this in terms of my role as co-chair of the Hauraki Golf Forum. and that is a statutory body, and we've just become a co-governance forum. It took 20 years. We've done it despite the legislation, and that's taken us a long way. And co-governance there is a tangata whenua co-chair with myself as the co-chair representing all the members. And so it's not a perfect structure, but it's totally in support of trying to make co-governance work. And that might be the end point for the Monaco Harbour Forum in terms of whether it's a legislative body or whether it's done from our own council resources or however it's done, but I don't think we should preempt that. And it's just fantastic to see what has been happening and what's possible up in Kaipara and the models that we can learn from. So this is a good starting point, and I hope that we can get behind this in terms of the ongoing management and being a far more focused work program to restore the Monaco Harbour, support the Monaco Harbour Forum in their good work, and then get the co-governance space, the co-governance underway with discussions with mana whenua. So kia ora, thank you for that, and I'd like to commend the recommendations to everybody.
Kia ora, thank you, Deputy Chair. Mayor Goff.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and my apologies, I'm going to have to go and get an update on the community transmission case, so I'll just speak very briefly. It's important that we understand the genesis of the report we're looking at, and Karen, you might not have been involved at the time, but as the Chair has pointed out, this was a response to a review report commissioned by the Monaco Harbour Forum. So it started off from its own perspective of the local boards and their concern. And then it has evolved from that as a result of the last workshop into a very clear realisation that to resolve and to remediate the problems of the Monaco, we need to have a collective response, and critical to that response is the partnership between this body and the mana whenua, the iwi. So that's where it's come from. We're not about to tell the Monaco Harbour Forum what it should do and how it should do it. It's an independent body and it makes its own decisions. Equally, we're not about to try to intervene in the process between iwi and the Crown over Y8. That's solely for you to work out with the Crown. But what we are here to do is to say that if we all work separately from each other, then we will be much weaker in achieving our shared objectives than if we come together. And that's exactly what we're trying to do as a result of this paper. The Monaco is a taonga, but it's a degraded, I should say, and damaged taonga. For 150 years, we have just added insult after insult to that harbour and the damage that's been done. And people are rightly saying, well, you know, Waitemata gets a lot of attention. It's in the centre of the city. Kaipara has suddenly got attention. Probably most Aucklanders don't know much about the Kaipara, but with what the Crown has done working with us and what we've done working with iwi and all the local authorities has been to make a huge transformational step forward for that harbour. And it'd be great if we were able to do the same thing for the Monaco, working together, understanding each other's perspectives, coming together to say, these are our goals, these are our priorities, this is what we want to do and how we want to do it, I think is incredibly important to actually making the transformation of the Monaco that we all want. So the next step arising out of this, and the important step, because this is the continuum of what we're doing today, is to have a meeting with the mana whenua and to share those views and hear from mana whenua to understand where we're coming from and to work out the best way forward. So I endorse the recommendations set out in the report, and I thank the Chair and the Vice Chair for the work that they've done on it.
Kia ora. Thank you, Mayor Goff. And there are no more people wanting to speak. Cool. Well, all those in favour? Aye. Against? Perfect. Thank you very much, members. And we can have, we'll go straight on to item 10, but maybe stand up, grab a... We'll have a 2-minute break just to collect ourselves.